Welcome to episode 211 of the Campus Comics Cast as we fear the day Loki becomes the god of podcasts and hopes he sticks to being the god of mischief. I'm Scott Reed, and I'm joined on this episode by
Mike Atchison.
And we're going to talk about the first 5 appearances of one Loki, god of mischief, god of, oh gosh, what did they change him to? God of dreams? Was it God of dreams in the Netflix series? Or not the Disney Plus series?
Oh.
I don't even remember now. So,
I don't know.
Spoiler.
Maybe timelines. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So whatever he's the god of, they started god of evil. We'll talk about that later on. Then became the god of mischief.
The trickster.
We're going to talk about that Loki. Yeah. And then we're going to talk about some things that we've been reading, and hopefully, if we've got time, wrap up with a CLZ Shake. So, anything crazy going on that you're aware of, Mike?
No, I think the most recent thing I paid attention. Well, I've started just really not care about distribution anymore. It's so the acquisition of the Diamond stuff. I'm like, I've heard recent stuff, and I'm like, let's just let me know when it's all shook out, and we know what the heck we're going to be doing. Otherwise, I don't want to read about it. But what I've seen most recently online was the new Superman trailer and the Fantastic Four trailer, both since we last recorded, and I thought they both looked really, really good.
I have not watched the Superman trailer yet.
Oh.
I did see the only reason I saw the FF trailer was because it was on before Thunderbolts. So
yeah,
it's got haven't.
It's got the feel of DC characters, the way the especially the co-stars of like Hawk Woman or Hawk Girl and Mr. Terrific and Guy Gardner. It's got that look and feel to it. But I don't know that there's a whole lot more to the trailer than the first one that came out. I might be wrong, but it's worth a look. But Fantastic Four, I'd say it edged it out as far as the trailer at least goes. I really enjoyed that.
And then we had an Ironheart trailer as well. Did you watch that one?
No, I didn't. Will that be on TV?
Disney Plus, yeah, it's a Disney Plus series. Yeah. No, I haven't seen it either, so I can't really say anything. So.
Okay, yeah, I don't get any notices of these except if it's through something, I get it on a feed saying, hey, by the way, we noticed that you look at this kind of thing, so you might want to see this.
Well, Mike, you probably should, at a minimum, put the Key Collector app on your phone, because then you'll at least get notified when when all these trailers are released from that. So yeah, because they notify you about that, plus tell you what issues you might want to invest in because of what's coming out in the future. But anyway, this isn't an ad for Key Collector. We're going to talk about the first 5 appearances of one Loki. Of course, Loki made his first appearance in Journey into Mystery issue 85. Which was 2 issues after Thor's first appearance in Journey into Mystery 83. Now, Mike, you kind of sent me a list of the various characters that we could potentially do a first 5. So was there some reason that you put Loki at the top of that list, or was that just a coincidence?
I think that must have been a coincidence. All I know is that I looked for some Marvel characters that were having an anniversary year in 2025. And so I suppose if this came out in 1965, then, or was it 65, right? So it'd be 50.
I don't even remember what year it was. Let's see here if I can close this, and will it tell me? 62.
62. So
according to, if the date on the app, the Marvel app is correct, September 30th, 1962. But we can say September 1962.
That still doesn't line up with an anniversary. Maybe.
No.
I don't know what the heck. I don't know. As I looked online for that stuff, his name was in there, among some others.
Well, the app, the Marvel app is not necessarily reliable on dates.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a real good chance that date is wrong. So I guess we could look that up here because we have the whole internet at our
We sure do.
Beck and call. So you would think that one of us would be smart enough to type in Journey into Mystery 85 date, and it would say October 1st, 1962. So
yeah.
So apparently September or October of 1962, depending on the internet or the Marvel app. So yeah.
Well, the whole premise that I was going off of characters having an anniversary was either me misremembering or I just,
Well, maybe it's a list you put together a few years ago.
Could be. All I know is I gave you a list. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Well, it was the 50th. It was his 50th or 60th in 22.
Yeah.
So if you made the list 3 years ago, then there you go.
I'm trying to think who.
But anyway, Mike.
Yeah.
So what was your first time reading Loki? Do you have any idea?
Well, you just threw off my entire answer by saying reading, because I don't think I've ever read a single Loki story. My first
really
exposure to the character would have been the MCU.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the Avengers movie then.
No, I thought he came out first in the 2011 Thor
Did
movie.
he come out? Let's see. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
And 2012 was Avengers.
First. Okay.
But yeah, that's
wow. That really surprises me that you've not ever read a Loki story prior to that.
Well, I could joke and say I actually read his first appearance in Venus Comics, Venus number 6, 1949. But that's not really the Loki we know and love. It's somebody else. So.
Well, what about, have you not read any early Avengers comics? Like the first couple Avengers comics?
Not with him. Nah, I'm telling you, I don't recall. I haven't even read the famous one, Avengers 4. Until recently, yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to think of some early appearances, like Avengers 2, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm misremembering, but he's the one that kind of convinces the Hulk to, cause some little bit of trouble. So he kind of is the mind behind that. And then, of course, you've got, some early Silver Surfer appearances. You have all the Journey into Mystery stuff. And so, I mean, he's been around for a little bit, so... Okay. All right. Well, anyway, I'm kind of surprised by that. So
yeah.
Well, do you know what the first time you actually read Loki in a comic book was?
This week.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
And I started in the best place, Journey into Mystery number 85. So,
okay.
At least now, if I'm going to continue reading, I can just do a full read. I can do a complete read.
There you go. Okay. You can hit it all. So
right. No, I know. I mean, that's. I didn't read many Marvel comics in my younger years, and I'm doing a lot of catch up these days. So, but I will say I'm a huge fan of Tom Hiddleston's portrayal. When I see his face, that's what I think of when I think of Loki. I don't think of a comic character. So I mean, I'm a fan of the character. I just don't have the experience in actual paper or comic stories.
Oh, okay. Well, for me at least, I think the first time I read a Loki story was actually a reprint issue. So in Silver Surfer number 4, Loki is kind of in the background manipulating Silver Surfer and causes the fight and the big battle between Silver Surfer and Thor that happens in Silver Surfer number 4. Now, I did not read that in Silver Surfer number 4. I read that in a reprint series called Fantasy Masterpieces, which started off, well, there was another Fantasy Masterpieces before, but there was another volume of Fantasy Masterpieces that started reprinting all of the Silver Surfer stories. So Silver Surfer, at least the first 4 or so, were reprinted in this Fantasy Masterpieces series. And there probably was most of them in the long run. So, but anyway, I believe this was my first encounter with Loki was in that issue of Silver Surfer number 4.
You have a good
memory. And again,
it
it kind of was, you know how it is. It's like you're trying to think, like I had an image in my brain, and I was like trying to decide when when that actually happened. And the image would end up being a little bit different than I remembered it, but it was close enough. It's like, okay, that's my oldest recollection of the Loki character, was from that Silver Surfer #4. Now there also was a book that got published in 1976 called Bring on the Bad Guys. Now I didn't start reading comics until 78 or 79 was like my first time I actually read a comic. So I would have had to have picked that book up, maybe early 80s. And now it could have been Bring on the Bad Guys. It could have been Son of Origins. These were all books that when they released, they had a character and they would give you 2 comics for that character. So Bring on the Bad Guys, as the name suggests, focused on the bad guys. And there were 2 Loki stories in there, which were actually much later, even after what we're reading, which is like, I think it was Journey into Mystery. I would look this up earlier today. I think it was Journey into Mystery 112 and 113, where you get like the full origin of Loki. But my actual memory for this is that Silver Surfer issue. So that's what I'm gonna stick by.
I'm glad you brought that up about the origin. I know that question comes up, but I didn't know where his origin was first told. So you said.
Well, again, that was just a real quick search today where it's mentioned in 112 or 113. We get the origin of Loki. So.
Gotcha.
All right. So what are your initial thoughts on the comic book version of Loki? What do you think about this version, Mike?
I mean, he in some ways he was kind of a cookie cutter villain. I mean, he had a costume. He was, he had some of that very recognizable Kirby gear, the way, he had the headgear and stuff. But what he developed into fairly quickly is that that whole shtick of being the manipulator, and it's not always just straight. He talks evil a lot, but not everything that he did was truly evil. It was more of Mr. Mxyzptlk kind of badness. It just, doing annoying things, and just couldn't, because he had such a inferiority complex with his brother. He just always wanted to best him, and he just was persistent that way, always looking for new ways to get one over on him. So I thought it was a little bit more that brother rivalry, and it was just mischievous behavior, mischievousness, whatever however you say it. But it's not your typical mustache twirling villain. So yeah, I'd say about 80% was fairly fairly groundbreaking. The other 20, he had some of the tropes of a bad guy, but it was pretty
typical
good.
Bad guy. Yeah, I like that they established and they've kind of kept this where he typically is not the one getting his hands dirty. He's manipulating other individuals to kind of do his dirty work. Now, doesn't always hold true in these first 5 stories. He definitely takes a more direct path, but they kind of play up the magic aspect of his powers quite a bit. So, and that he is, at least in some shape, form, or fashion, of Asgardian origin. And I like how they only kind of loosely tie it to the actual Norse mythology. It's not like a direct, direct, match up to how the character gets gets captured or is imprisoned, compared to how it actually was in mythology.
Well, I mean, I even actually, part of my research was I was just trying to compare and contrast this Loki with the Norse mythology Loki. And although it's the same type of god, trickery, mischief, stuff like that, chaos, he's in mythology, he's actually the brother of Odin, not the son. So I thought
Oh,
that was
okay.
interesting. Whereas in comics, he is the adopted son of Odin.
Okay. It's been a while since I've read any Norse mythology. I don't know that part. I guess I missed.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't recall having that in school or ever taking a class on it, but I always find mythology interesting.
Oh yeah.
I also kind of like wanted to cross reference with Greek mythology and see what his counterpart would be, but there isn't a perfect one to one. Hermes, known mostly, Hermes or Mercury in the Roman
Hmm.
pantheon, known for speed, messenger, but he's also known for his mischievousness and being
Yeah.
that way, but not really, and a thief, I guess too. But that's the closest I can
Wasn't
come.
wasn't was it Pan that was considered like the trickster in Greek/Roman? And I'm not expert on the difference between the two. I know it's like Zeus, Jupiter, and blah blah blah. They have their counterparts with the same, but I thought Pan was kind of like the trickster
That's
in
interesting that you asked that
Greek
because
Roman.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Mm,
Um, so I'm thinking he's the god of the wild shepherds and flocks, often
that's
depicted
right.
as a satyr, a creature with legs and horns of a goat, known for his musical talents and
Okay, yeah, but I mean, with mythology, they all those gods kind of performed multiple roles eventually. So it's kind of hard to say. I know in if you compare and contrast to the Eternals, which is Marvel's one of Marvel's godlike pantheons, another of Marvel's godlike pantheons, I guess I should say.
mhm.
You have the Sprite character, who was kind of the mischievous one. So anyway, there's some there the ties to mythology are they're taken several times. I just like how like I'm looking at this picture now where Loki escapes from inside the tree by dropping a leaf into Heimdall's eye,
Yeah.
and it's like how Heimdall even changes his appearance from issue to issue.
Yeah.
He's like purple and gold here in the first one, but then its looks change, and it's like almost every single time Heimdall appears, he has a different look. So
Yeah, he's got like the brown or whatever. I thought the helmet was brown, but then it was yellow from, after the first issue. Yeah, definitely
yeah,
an evolution. Oh, I did look up on, by the
yeah,
way, on Pan. I think now he was known to be a god of like of oh, he could inspire fear and terror. So maybe
okay,
that's a fairly close. And
maybe.
Hermes is named as his father. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
closer to the mark than we thought.
There you go. All right. So, um, yeah, you mentioned now Loki's costume. Yeah, it does start in the first issue. His headdress, or however you want to refer to it, on the cover,
Right.
it's yellow with white horns.
Right.
But in the book, it's brown
Yeah.
with sometimes brown horns, sometimes yellow horns, and sometimes white horns.
Yeah.
So there's a little inconsistency on the coloring there, just a little bit. So
Yeah. That's just sitting here thinking. I don't think there's credits given to an issue 85 of Journey into Mystery. It doesn't have the credits listed, but it looks
oh,
like Kirby. It's got to be. I know Joe Sinnott
oh yeah.
did the last couple issues, but
Let's see here. If we go to the issue details. So Larry Lieber is the writer, Stan Lee writer. Actually, it says Don Heck was the penciler slash inker. Well, of course, okay, it's got. Oh, they have the interiors credit to Don Heck, Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby,
oh
all get a penciler credit, and then Don Heck, Steve Ditko, Dick Ayers get an inker credit. So who
okay,
knows?
so I know the Journey into Mystery was an anthology title as much as anything,
Hmm.
even when Thor became the headliner. So I assume there were some other stories in here besides the Thor story, especially since these are all 13 pagers. They're not that long.
Oh yeah,
So uh,
yeah, that's true. So on the digital version, I guess we're not getting the whole book.
we're not. That's kind of chintzy of them
Oh,
because I like seeing
that's
those
yeah.
old stories.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was weird when it ended, and it's like, huh?
Yeah.
How many pages? Is it?
Right.
Oh yeah, it's only 14 pages.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's crazy that they wouldn't bother just to do the whole thing. So.
I know it's.
So now I got to update my having read list because I didn't read the whole comic.
I mean, it's one thing if right. Oh man. Oh shoot.
I just lost 5 books on my reading
Oh.
list, so I only read half of them.
Oh my gosh, that's true. But you know, that makes sense whenever they put together a collection, say of Loki stories or Thor stories or whatever, and they don't include those second or third or fourth stories
Right.
in the print version because it's extra paper that of something people
Yeah.
aren't interested. But in the digital,
In the digital,
it's digital.
yeah. Scan the other 14 pages.
Yes, right.
It's just like, yeah, you've already got the scanner out. Just scan the rest of them.
Yeah.
So. All right, so Mike, how much do we get about Loki's origins? Do you feel like in these first 5 issues?
Well, you know, I was answering these questions to myself after I read all the way through all the issues, and I thought I don't remember any mention of the origin. And I went back and I could only find reference to basically that, just that Loki and Thor have that past as, as Odin's son and Thor's brother, but nothing really of his origins of what, of him,
Right.
what we find out later, that he was rescued from, from the giants, or he was abandoned or whatever it was. I forget. But now you got me wondering, what was it? He was abandoned by the frost giants, his frost giant father, because he was ashamed of his son's small size, and Odin rescues the kid out of pity, and whatever, and then he was raised alongside Thor as his own son.
Right.
So.
So what things do you think they have forgotten, changed, retconned? What do you think has been changed, or what do you feel like has been changed? I know you, and I guess you maybe you're having to compare it to the movie version since you haven't read a lot of comic book version of Loki.
I think the charisma is better. Even I'm going to guess that even in the comics that because they had to base all that. There had to be an evolution over time of making the character a little bit more interesting and not the same story, just different tricks every story. I think they had to make him somewhat redeemable. We see a glimpse of that in one of the issues where I want to say it's the second to last issue of the first 5, which would have been 92 of Journey into Mystery, and it's when he saves that, or he stops that Russian bomb from exploding. Now, I don't know if that's really, maybe that was in the last issue. I don't know if that's really him being benevolent, or if he's just I don't know, trying to stymie the Russians. But you could almost take it as him being, wait a second, I don't want this bomb to go off, and he stops it. So I guess my point is, maybe over time he became that more redeemable character that I'm used to seeing in the movies.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, he went from being the self-proclaimed god of evil, to kind of then becoming the trickster god or the god of mischief, and now the character is so loved from the movies and the Disney series that he, for the most part, is a good guy in the comic books. So at least he even has had his own title a few times now. As a just
so
because of things that he's done.
Right.
So in the movies.
So is Kid Loki him as a younger person, or is that like a child of his or something, or a?
That's okay. I'm assuming that's going to be a variant, so just from a different timeline.
Oh, okay.
Because if you're talking about from the series where you get the crocodile Loki and the kid Loki and the president Loki and those are all just different variations.
No, I thought he was like in Young Avengers or something. I was looking up his appearances, so I just.
Oh wow. No, I don't. I don't remember him in Young Avengers unless it's a later Young Avengers volume.
Well, maybe I don't.
Because the Young Avengers was, of course, you had Patriot and Kate Bishop and Hulkling and Wiccan and Speed and Iron Lad and Stature, I think, were the main young Avengers. Now, the one thing that you might be thinking of is that we learned that Iron Lad is a past version of is a version of Kang the Conqueror. So if you're thinking Young Avengers, that might be what you're thinking of.
Oh, no, I wasn't. I was
Oh,
thinking of
oh, okay,
what I just found online. It's Earth 616, but Loki Laufeyson, which is, I think Laufey was his biological father, but I think
right.
it's a
That's the Frost or the Frost
it's a
Giant. Yeah.
there's a whole thing here. I forgot. It's too long to even get down to the you know to the crux of it, but I think it's the same person just reincarnated or
Well,
de-aged or
it's
something
okay.
like that.
That's Loki Laufey's son is the same as Thor Odin's son. That's just identifying the lineage.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So just to know that he's not biologically the son of,
Yeah.
Odin. So
Yeah.
just to differentiate.
Okay. Well, yeah, and this character was in 2010. Thor 617 was the first appearance in 2010 of Kid Loki. But
Okay, all right. That I'm not for sure of because Loki's died. Of course, all of the Asgardian gods have died multiple times. There's been different variations on Ragnarok. Um, there was the J. Michael Straczynski run on Thor, which
mm-hmm.
is really really good. It's not the first time that Loki was portrayed as female, but it was the first where that was just more than just a single one issue plot point.
Mm-hmm.
So just because he's a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
But that was a really really good story. So if you're looking for Loki stories to read, I would suggest the J. Michael Straczynski run on Thor because it's trying to again the Asgardian gods have all died, so it's like how are they getting reintroduced back to the Marvel universe. So
When did that come out?
it's really good.
About?
Oh gosh, 2000s.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
I don't remember exactly. So
A lot of good comics came out in that decade, I think.
yeah. Well, it's just like there's a lot, it's like every decade has some gems and has some duds, and some decades have more gems than duds,
Sure.
and some have more duds than gems. But yeah,
Some have exact number of duds and gems,
there
completely
you go.
balanced.
That's right. All right, so power set for Loki. Obviously, we've got the magic is the big thing, and he kind of is equivalent to other Asgardians, though he's technically not Asgardian, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else from his power set anything you want to point out from his power set?
But just what you see in these 5 stories, you see the deception, the shape shifting, like you said, mind control, where he put the foo-fahs on Jane to let him in the doctor's office. He can put out a force field around Mjolnir to keep Thor from getting to it and forcing him to become Don Blake again. And one thing he enhanced the powers of others, like Santu, that was the mind reader at the carnival.
Mm-hmm.
He could enhance his powers from way back in Asgard, which that's something
Mm-hmm.
else. Is that the first couple issues, it was like he had to be in the presence of the person he's messing with or affecting to
Right.
control them. But later stories, he was just chained up to a tree or a rock or something and could do it from Asgard.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty
So he's
powerful.
just like the manipulator. Yeah, just the manipulator behind.
Yeah.
So we've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but how closely does this version of the character match up to what we see in comic books today? What's the same? What's different? So you want to add anything to that, Mike?
Well, the first thing I thought of was the costumes distinctly different. Like you said, it even changed throughout the first 5 appearances. Um, I don't know. I've seen pictures of him in the comics since then, and he's got headgear, but not the big horns. So I'd say that's what uh, I noticed the most. I think the powers are pretty much the same. It's just how they're applied, or maybe some more uh, some better plots to go along with the powers nowadays.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and obviously the motivation has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Before it was just evil, right? And
Yeah.
now then it kind of got tamed down to mischief, and then now he's practically a good guy. So
Yeah. Right.
all right. So what do you want to talk about? What moments in these first 5 comics do you want to do you want to spend some time on?
I've got a few. We
Okay. Well, you go one, and then
Okay.
I'll go one. So.
Okay. The first thing I wanted to, you already sort of mentioned it was the way he freed himself from the tree in issue 85, where he somehow manages to have the leaf float perfectly into Heimdall's eye, and I just got a chuckle out of that. But yeah, so okay, back to you.
Okay. I'm just gonna say that Journey into Mystery 94, which was the 5th issue, so this is Loki's 5th appearance. That is the most DC comic I have ever read in a Marvel book in my entire life. Because this is the one this felt so DC Silver Age. And I know it's
Yeah,
Marvel, but it's just like, how do we get Loki to team up, or Thor to team up with Loki? Okay, so we're just gonna have him get hit in the back of the head with his own hammer, and he's gonna forget that all these bad things that Loki's done, and then they're gonna pair up against the entire United Nations.
you're absolutely
But you
right.
could and then like at the end, you've got Odin and some of the other Asgardians that were in disguise as members of the UN, and it's just like you could have just changed this to like Lex Luthor and Superman, and then had like Jimmy Olsen and Lois and Perry White and whatever
Yeah.
rip off their costumes at the end. It could have
And
100%
they all have a
have
big
been.
laugh at the end.
Yeah, a bit. This was, and it's just the most DC Silver Age trope I'd ever seen in a Marvel book before. So,
I'd have to agree with you on that. In fact, that's what made. Uh, I'll save it for later. Yeah.
oh, okay, all right, all right. What else you want to call attention to, Mike?
Okay, another comparison to DC. You remember how I think it was you that had aggravated when Wonder Woman's lasso became an all-powerful tool. It could do all kinds of things. It could uh, strike, she could do that cross the arms magic thing, and the lasso could bring down the thunder or whatever. It just could do everything. Uh,
Oh, in the movie, you
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
okay, maybe.
Maybe that was,
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's what, when Thor used his hammer to emit antimatter particles to turn the citizens back into positive forms instead of negative forms that Loki had done to them. I thought, now that's taking it to, that is a, what do you call it?
The pseudoscience.
Yeah,
The
pseudoscience, or
pseudoscience.
just do just something. Just, we got to make it. He's got to be able to fix this somehow. So let's just say his hammer can do it. Yeah,
There you go. Yeah. It couldn't just be Thor uses some magic, some of his own Asgardian magic to counter the other Asgardian magic. No,
yeah, yeah,
we gotta define it into some scientific terms.
yeah.
So I don't know. I'm trying to think of anything else that I really wanted to mention. Nothing else is really jumping out at me. So Mike, if you got something else, go right
Oh, I got a
ahead.
couple. I always go to great
Okay.
lengths. So the one thing I was reminded by the second issue, which would have been 88, was the use of lightning bolts to represent magic in those days. I mean, and I say those days, I mean going back uh, to the Golden Age too, through the Silver Age. Just like lightning bolts was the only visual way they could come up with. It wasn't until Dr. Fate started using the Ankh symbol to kind of represent that. So I got a chuckle out of that. That cover of 88 has more word balloons and words than probably 100 comics put together these days. That's very endearing. I like it, but it tells a whole lot about the story just on those word balloons. And this is where Loki's revealed to be Odin's son instead of his brother, as in Norse mythology. And
Right. Okay.
you mentioned the whole mask thing. The Asgardians were disguised, uh, but Loki instead, because earlier in the issue had shapeshifted into a snake to get past Heimdall and get across the Bifrost. But then later, he's got a mask on to deceive a human. So I'm like, dude, you can change forms. You don't need the mask.
Yeah.
So that's DC too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's just one. I don't know why, but like one of the things I remember from like an early Avengers story is you have Iron Man. They're fighting. I think they're fighting the Masters of Evil or something like that. So this is.
Oh yeah.
It's an early Iron Man thing, and at one point, Iron Man gets into a dump truck to drive it into one of the Masters of Evil. It's just like, what? it's just like the idea of what constitutes a good fight scene has definitely changed over time.
Right.
So.
Right. The mind reader, the Sandu, I think his name was. So he was reading a civilian's mind at the carnival, and I think Don Blake and Jane Foster are looking on, and he recites or says, "Oh, your social security number is blah blah blah," and I'm like, they put it all out there, the whole social security number. So that's probably somebody's real social security number. I'm like,
yeah, oh yeah,
that would not happen today. That would not happen today.
No.
And I did have a question for you. The belt of strength that Odin gave Thor in issue 3, or the third of the first 5 issues, was that something that stuck around?
I have no idea.
Okay.
So now most of my early Norse mythology understanding came from playing Dungeons and Dragons, and in Dungeons and Dragons, the maximum strength value was 25, with the sole exception that Thor had a strength value of 26, and it was partly because of his belt of strength, and partly because he was the only one that could carry Mjolnir. So I know that the belt of strength has some basis in mythology.
Yeah.
But I don't recall them in the Thor issues that I'm reading ever really talking about.
Okay.
Of course, now they aren't talking about things like that, in every single issue. It's like, it's like Wolverine saying that he's the best he ever was, the best he is at what he does.
Yeah.
It's like that used to be something that got said all the time, and comics were written where every comic was somebody's first comic book, so they had to kind of do some type of introduction to the characters.
Sure.
And we just don't have that anymore. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
That's a long way for me to say I don't know the answer.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's interesting. It made me think of like the Hippolyta's girdle, or Hercules stole that, and it it affected the strength, and I thought maybe it was around for other stories or something. How about, again, this is more of the form of a question to you. It mentions that Mjolnir is made of the metal Uru.
Uru, yeah.
And is that something that also stuck around as
yes,
canon?
I mean the hammer still is, and that's even played into the movies. So like when the hammer gets destroyed in the movie, when you have King Etri come back, the dwarf that builds Thor his new hammer, it's also, I think, created out of Uru. So yeah, they're the only ones that can apparently fashion that. So
okay. I mean,
so yeah, that has definitely stuck around.
I mean, Thor's strength must have really gotten better with that belt, because he was able to actually carve out a hammer out of that Uru rock with his finger.
Yes, with his fingers, which he shouldn't have been able to do, but because that would mean that he could smash his own hammer, and right. And he couldn't do that. So yeah. So just a little inconsistency there, but
yeah, it's comics.
Just a little bit. Oh yeah.
My last statement was that in the last panel of this story was, this whole story was about he couldn't get to his hammer, so he made one out of wood. Then he made one out of forged one out of the rock.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and the last panel, Jane is talking about how Dr. Blake is experienced using a mallet, and Blake's thinking to himself, if she only knew, as he is testing a patient's reflexes by tapping their knee with the little rubber hammer. I thought that was kind of cute.
And I guess we probably should talk a little bit about the fact that this is at that time period where you had romance comics, right?
Sure.
So you had all of this stuff going on. You had to inject a little romance into all these books. So you have Jane Foster and Don Blake and Thor love triangle thing going on in this particular book. And Jane Foster's a character that stuck around. So she vanished for a while, but she became critical into the Thor universe much later on in the comics.
Yeah,
so,
was the sense she was Thor in the Jason Aaron run where she...
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Spoiler. So, yeah. Spoiler on that. But, all right. So, I guess well, do you want to point out a favorite issue from the first 5?
Yes, that's what I almost kind of spoiled it ahead of time. It's the last one, issue 94. First of all, it's got that Sinnott art. I know it might be sacrilegious to say, but I liked it better than the Kirby art in the early issues. He looks more menacing, Loki does. But what really won over this issue for me was just what you mentioned about what made it like a DC book was the Thor has this Guy Gardner-like change in personality from the blow to the head and then becomes Loki's ally. And then until another blow to the head restores his normal personality. So it was, it was cracked me up.
Whenever I talked about that being a very DC-like issue, that was not a compliment.
But ironically, that's what made it my favorite. I know. That's the irony of it. I'm like, oh, this is great.
Well, for the record, I would take any of the other 4 issues over that issue because that was my least favorite of the 5 by far.
Well, it's hey, there was 4. I mean, I guess I could have liked the first one pretty well too, just because it was his first.
And for me, it was more the issues where he was like stuck to the tree, chained to the tree, and was manipulating things from behind, from the background. That just kind of felt the most Loki to me. So like those were probably my 2 favorite issues. I think that was what was that, like
91 maybe
89 or 88 91. I guess did we ever even said what issues we were covering?
I don't think so, but it's go ahead if you.
Well, if you've got it handy, I'll have to find it in Facebook Messenger here real fast.
Oh no, it's
have it handy.
It's Journey to Mystery.
So the first appearance is 85, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then what was the next one? 80.
The next one's 88.
7?
88.
88. Okay. All right. Okay. Go ahead.
And then 91, 92, and 94.
94. All right. So, okay. All right. And then, of course, do you plan to seek out more stories with Loki?
Yeah, I will. I'm interested in what you said about the Straczynski run. I'm interested in Kid Loki. I mean, Thor is one of my favorite. I might have even said at one point he was my favorite Marvel hero, or at least my favorite Avenger. And I like him portrayed in a certain way, sort of like we've talked about in the past about he's a noble character. He's the son of a king, and he's caught between 2 worlds. I like those complexities. I think that there are a lot of potential for lots of good stories with him. So I think Loki's a big part of it, and I would continue if there's a new one come out now. Having read these, I would say, you know what, I'm going to pick this up just to kind of see the contrast that I can only assume from the comic or from the movies.
I'm going to go with my pat answer on this question. Is if there's a good Loki story, I'm happy to read it. He's not a character though that I actively seek out, and it's like, oh great, Loki's in it. It's like we got the speaking of the Bring on the Bad Guys book that came out, in '76. We've got a comic series that's getting ready to come out, a weekly or called Bring on the Bad Guys. It's going to have there are a bunch of one shots that are going to highlight Marvel bad guys, and Loki is one of them that's in the Bring on the Bad Guys.
Yeah.
So I'm not planning on pre-ordering that whenever it's available for pre-order. But if I hear that any of those are particularly good, then yeah, I'll definitely read them in the app. And if they blow me away, then I'll go pick up a physical copy. But for me, it's kind of sticking to that, to that J. Michael Straczynski run. There was again that The appearances in Silver Surfer were good. So there's definitely some good classic Loki stories.
Well, that's the way I have to read anymore, is prioritizing by what I need to read for a purpose. I can't just, whether it's something I'm following along with in a podcast I'm listening to, or it's something we're working on, I I will never just randomly say, you know what, I'm going to download that Straczynski run from Marvel, from the Marvel app. I need purpose, and that's why I like doing this, because it gives me purpose.
There you go. All right. So I'm glad that, to quote Steve Martin in The Jerk, Mike, I'm glad you found your special purpose.
That's right. I have purpose.
All right. So what we've been reading, Mike? I know you've got a list prepared. So why don't you start us out?
All right. Well, it's probably one of the most recent reads out of this list, and probably one of the most enjoyable. And it's the issues. It's a 6-issue miniseries of Metamorpho, the Element Man by Al Ewing and Steve Lieber. I've read 5 issues of the 6. The last one's still to come, but the Fab Freak is back, as they say. And I use that expression because that's the way the writing is. It is a complete callback to the swinging 60s, and it remains faithful to that character's origins. It's really based in, because Metamorpho was created by Bob Haney and Ramona Fradon. And he appeared, I think, the first time in Brave and the Bold, number 57. And he got his powers from the Orb of Ra in Egypt. He was a archaeologist and was exposed to these powers, and he became Metamorpho. But it's also a curse in a way, because he's got this sort of hideous form. And what I like so much about it is that Ewing has embraced, instead of trying to reinvent this character or even portray him like he has in some other subsequent series, whether it be The Outsiders or somewhere else, they are going straight back to the 60s, and they are mining up characters from very obscure characters from there. He's got the expected cast. He got Sapphire Stagg, which is his longtime girlfriend, even before the accident. Simon Stagg, which is her father, and he's kind of a bad guy billionaire, but Metamorpho is sticking around him because he keeps promising to find a cure for him. And then Stagg's henchman, Java, who's also like everything, bodyguard, driver, etc. But then you get these other guests in this series. Element Girl, who was first appeared in that original series, I think like around 1967. She's a CIA agent who wanted to duplicate the accident that granted him the powers, and it worked. And then there's Element Woman that came around. I don't know much about her. She came around in the New 52. And then Element Dog is from the Terrifics. So they're all in this. And it is wacky and zany as you can imagine, but it is also very, very fun. It also has another Haney. I don't know if Haney created Prince Rahman, or if he just wrote him in House of Secrets for a few years, but it's in that same era, and he makes an appearance in this series. There's Mr. 3, who's another villain who came from the original Element Girl story in 67. He can alter his physical state between solid, liquid, and gas. So they play up on this whole element stuff throughout. It's really cool. You might think, oh, I don't know if I want to go back to the 60s or early 60s, but I'm telling you, Ewing finds a way to make it an absolute blast. And it's very fast-paced. I mean, you get a complete story in the issue, but you're also hooked for the next issue too. So it's written in a different way. It's not written in this made for a trade fashion like you see so often these days.
All
So
right. Well,
yeah,
I've got a. Okay, go ahead. No,
no,
I got a couple of stories that I'm going to kind of lump into one. The first is actually two series. One is a one shot called Mindset, and the second is a series called New Think. Now these are not particularly new books. These have been around for a year or two, and I've had them in my have read pile for a little bit. Let's see, Mindset was from 2022, and New Think is from what year? Okay, I don't see the indicia here. It's also 22. So both of these are books. One's from AWA. The New Think is from AWA.
yeah,
And the Mindset is from Vault. All right, so two different publishers. I guess the thing I want to point out, these I bought these because they kind of had a Black Mirror feel to them. So that's that Netflix series about when technology goes bad. By the way, there's a new season of that. It's really, really good if you're into if you are into that type of story. But ultimately, what both of these series are talking about is how social media and cell phone addiction is going to ruin us all. So I guess if you're wanting to read something that's going to verify that cell phone, Facebook, TikTok, whatever is going to end up being a problem for people, then you should pick these two series up. Again, the first one is Mindset from Vault Comics, written by Zach Kaplan, art by John Pearson. And then the second series is New Think from AWA. It's got a different writers and well, actually, it's Hurwitz. Greg Hurwitz is the primary writer, and then different artists on each of the book. Like Mike Diodato does art on one of them. So if you're just wanting some ammunition about why technology is going to ruin us all, and specifically social media and cell phones, there's an issue where it talks about you know the screens taking control, and it's very interesting that there is this kind of consistent backlash that we see in books like this talking about how this technology is bad. And I also have, and I was going through my box trying to find it, but there's another Matt Kent story in here someplace that basically also has a very similar take on it. It's like how technology and cell phones are going to end up ruining us all. So
yeah.
so yeah. So anyway, if you're a fan of Black Mirror, pick up New Think, pick up Mindset, but they're not great, so I don't highly recommend them. But if that's the type of thing that you enjoy reading, then they maybe are worth picking up. So
I read New Think when it came out, and I liked a couple of the issues, not all of them. But you're right. When you first started talking about it, I think I was remembering the Mark Russell series where people basically we live in the future. Not
they thumb up, thumb down, and
yeah.
they blow up
If
their
you get
heads
too many,
if they get too many thumbs down.
too many thumbs down, your head blows up. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I can't think of that title right now, but that's what I was thinking. You were getting ready to, or that's what you were talking about. But no, that's different. So it's
Yeah, but it's the same. It's the same concept though. And it's just
yes,
like, and
yeah,
I don't know. I think there's a lot of we are getting into a world, not to get too deep into this, but we're getting into a world where there's a lot of backlash against that social media and cell phone addiction, and it's starting to present itself in the comics, and it'll be interesting to see if that then carries over into real life if we end up in a half a generation or whatever have this major revolt against cell
sure,
phones and the like. So
yeah, yeah.
all right, back to you.
All right. Well, the next one I guess I could have waited until all 5 issues come out, but the only 2 have come out so far. But I like it so much that I wanted to bring it up. It's called Out of Alcatraz by Christopher Cantwell and illustrator Tyler Crook. This came from Oni Press, and I like prison-based stories, especially to just kind of see if it's going to be somewhat realistic or somewhat true to what really happens in a prison. And this obviously is based on the real life 1962 escape from Alcatraz, where Frank Morris and the two Anglin brothers tried to escape. They didn't, unless you check in on any of the conspiracy theories. There's plenty of them out there about them maybe having escaped and still live today in Tijuana. So I made that part up, but the Tijuana part. But yeah, there are still talk about that. But out of Alcatraz, this book, it picks up right after the escape. It doesn't have anything to do with at the prison. They're planning, they're plotting, they're getting off the island. It's after it's when they land on shore just outside of the city of San Francisco, and Frank Morris and Clarence Anglin, they realize that Clarence's brother John's not with them, and so they just think he's dead, and they move on. They left him behind, even though Clarence didn't want to. Frank is clearly the sort of leader of the two, and they, at a predetermined meeting point, they meet with a woman who is like their handler, who's supposed to help them get eventually across the border. But she's also kind of running for something. She's not we don't know much about her past at all, but they're making their way north to Canada. Frank doesn't like that she is kind of the boss, but she handles herself really well. The law enforcement, I mean, I've been on the law enforcement side of a few things, and I could say, yeah, this stuff happens. The federal agent that just kind of is poo-pooing the whole thing, that even though there's evidence to say that they survived, near where the car was stolen, after they washed ashore, they found a couple of deflated life jackets that was used as the sort of the life raft, and the agent's like just kind of brushes it off. So then you wonder if he's doing it on purpose or not. The local cop believes that they're out there somewhere, but it also kind of shows that there's instances where these guys are realizing, being out isn't much more hellish or much better than what prison was, because it kind of sucks being on the run. But yeah, it's really good. The art is perfect for the story. It's sort of got this moody and kind of muted, washed out look to it, and it fits the setting in that early '60s. It's very enjoyable. It's one of the first things I read when I get my books each month.
All right, so my second book is much more recent. This is April of 2025. This is Polis, and I went ahead and pulled this one out because you mentioned Mark Russell earlier.
Yeah.
So this one is written by Mark Russell with art by Lacey. This is a setup book for a new anthology. It's from a imprint called AWA called Futurific, and it has something to do with the Purpose Project, which is something that I guess that was on PBS. The PBS documentary, A Brief History of the Future. So the idea is like, what is the world that we are heading towards, and what it might look like. So in this particular, I guess this is the setup for that series, is how I am taking this series. But you have basically where climate change has caused hurricanes to become a massive problem. They regularly are destroying most of the coastal United States, and I get the feeling also well into the United States and various countries. So what were initially giant life rafts that were built to go out into the water and protect people or save people, have actually become the only place where people can live safely. So these giant life rafts that are the ones that are sending supplies back to the people who are still choosing to live on land, and they regularly have these pickup points where anybody who wants to leave the land can come join one of these, and there's more than one of them. There are several of these giant life raft, and life raft is probably not the right term because it is literally like a floating city that can submerge during an actual hurricane. But they are able to be self-sufficient. Anybody who comes, they completely forget your past and provide you with a employment, but not like indentured servitude type of employment. It's like you can choose what kind of job you want and become a contributing member of society. So I'm kind of interested to see where it's going to go. I know that Mark Russell is a pretty respected writer. I've not been on anything that he's written long term, so I am probably going to, if I remember to look for it, when we talk about pre-orders and stuff, I'm going to try to remember to look for anything. This is called the Protopius collection, and I'm going to try to find and follow up and continue to read what's going on in this particular universe, this kind of future thinking, version of what the future might look like. So, again, that's Polis from AWA.
I remember that being solicited, and I did order it. I just haven't read it yet. Russell's the main reason I know his kind of thing, and I'm definitely going to have to check this out.
All right, back to you.
Okay, this is a single issue that going down a rabbit hole, I decided to read, and I'm going to talk about it, not necessarily because it was a good story, but it was notable, and to give you the reason why I dug it up. It's Action Comics 582 by a writer who is not familiar to me, Craig Boldman. This is in August of 1986. The art was by Alex Saviuk and Kurt Schaffenberger on the inks. The reason this is somewhat notable is that it's the last regular issue of the first volume of Action Comics, because the next issue was part 2 of the famous Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow by Alan Moore.
Moore, okay.
And the reason I wanted to read this, in fact, I had to look for it online. I didn't have it in my book, and I couldn't get it on the app. So I bought it online. It's the reason I was getting it is because it's the last appearance, or pre-crisis appearance, but last appearance really essentially period, of 2 characters named Rock and Sorban of the planet Ventura. That's the gambler's planet. The inhabitants of this world are later known in post-crisis DC as the Luck Lords, and they appear in like different Legion stories and Mark Waid Brave and the Bold run in 2007 and stuff. So anyway, the reason I got onto them is that Andrew Mallon and I were reviewing this last episode that was released on the Roadshow was Time Tunnel Comics, and the book was Limited Collector's Edition, a tabloid book, number C48. It was the Superman versus Flash races. So the story with these 2 characters was from Flash 175, and these 2 characters, Luck Lords, if you will, were manipulating Superman and Flash to race so they could bet on them. And anyway, this story has nothing to do with that. Except for those 2 characters. It's basically Rock and Sorban are trying to see if Superman can be tempted into committing murder. I think the bet is, one says Superman is completely altruistic, he would never do anything wrong or bad. The other one says, oh, anybody can be tempted. So they had a bet on it. So what do? They are trying to get him to commit murder by creating a fake Jor-El and Lara that were resurrected in Superman's mind, that they were alive. They're his real parents, and they're alive on Earth. But then they turned against him, and he had to kill them to stop from whatever they were doing or something. But of course, he didn't kill him. He figured out what the plot was. Again, it was not the greatest of stories, but it was the last appearance of these guys and the last regular issue of Action Comics, you might say.
All right, so my next one is from Image Comics. It is Moonshine Bigfoot #1. I picked this book up because last year at the Metropolis Superman celebration, Zach Howard, who is, I guess, co-writer and inker on this book, was there at the Superman celebration. He was super excited about it coming out. It also has pencils from Steve Ellis, who I met and got a Red Guardian sketch one year from him at Gen Con. So I thought, well, there's a couple of creators that I've met, and I would like to support this book. But oh my goodness, it is. I don't know what I was expecting going in with a title like Moonshine Bigfoot, but it's just 100% satire, and it's not like political satire, or maybe satire is not the word. Probably parody. Parody would actually be the better word. All right, because so the origin for Moonshine Bigfoot, all right, it's just like Superman's origin. His parents put him in something to send him away from their world being destroyed. He ends up being rescued by two childless bumpkins who turn him into a moonshiner. All right, he lives in Buzzard County as opposed to Hazard County.
Oh,
Okay,
God.
so it's got Dukes of Hazzard parody. I mean, he's being chased by the cops. He's racing his car. He's got a hippie girlfriend who is, for the most part, Daisy Duke. He's being chased by Sheriff Justice P. Worrell. You know, it's just parody after parody after parody.
Sounds like a lot of
they
70s parody, even.
Yeah, and then plus with the cryptid stuff between the Bigfoot and there's a chupacabra. There's like a little bonus story about the chupacabra. It's Dukes of Hazzard meets cryptid meets parody meets silly X-Files. Like they go to this bar, and like Big Bird's head is stuffed and mounted on the bar wall.
Ugh.
So I mean, it's a little too much parody and not enough original content, unfortunately. I was disappointed. I was expecting a little bit more. I know I already have the second issue of this on order. I wish I could be more excited about having that second issue on the way. But I guess if you are a fan of parody, then this is something that you should pick up because the art is well done, and they play on parody for all different types. So again, that's Moonshine Bigfoot. It's a 4-issue series coming out from Image. And again, the creators that were the main creators for me were Zach Howard and art by Steve Ellis. So parody book. Even one of the villains almost feels like Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe. It's just so much parody of other things smashed into one book. It was just a little too much parody for me. So.
Well, what it reminds me of, and this is a little bit more on the head of parody, and that's Sham Comics. Their whole premise is they take old public domain stories, wipe out all the dialogue and narrative, and replace it with new funny dialogue that might match the pictures, or match the art.
Mystery Science Theater 3000 did something like that too.
Oh,
where
really?
They took public domain comics and
Okay.
they used all the well, I think that was it. They used all the original artwork,
Oh,
but they
okay.
just changed all the dialogue.
I guess there's no copyright on
Yeah.
doing that kind of style book.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be darned. Well, my last
What do you got next?
My last one is Black Canary Best
Okay.
of the Best. It's a 6-issue series. I've read through issue 5, and you and I have read a lot of Tom King books. Not all of them hit 100% for us. Your favorite phrase is the fatal flaw of some of the endings, or just the book itself. But
The premise.
the
The
premise,
premise
the
for
fatal
me, yeah.
flaw. And for me, it's sometimes sort of I don't like using the term character assassination, but I am old enough to be like, oh gosh, I hate to see a certain character be portrayed that way, even though it's in maybe a Black Label book. But Black Canary Best of the Best is, I want to say, outside of maybe his Wonder Woman run and maybe Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, might be my favorite to date. It's got Ryan Sook on art, and if you give Ryan Sook time, I don't know that there's anyone better these days. It focuses on the younger Black Canary, Dinah Lance, the current hero, and she is in a high stake, televised, bare knuckle fighting tournament against Lady Shiva. Just think, MMA fighting between two, maybe the number one and number two fighters in the DC universe, as far as at least female, but maybe overall. Uh, that alone premise is interesting and it gets you hooked, but it has a lot of flashbacks with Dinah struggling with showing her prepare for this and training for it, and then also why she's doing, and that has to do. It's kind of a secret at first, but it has to do with her mother, the original Black Canary, and her terminal illness. So it's really the jury. I have no idea. There is this narration method, I guess you'd say, that some may like and some may not. Is the story is while they're fighting is sort of told by two announcers, ringside announcers that are bantering back and forth. It's pretty snappy dialogue, pretty snappy. It's written well, but it can also be like, okay, you can only do this for so long, but it's still a good way to frame it and to tell the story other than just looking at the pictures. But it's really good. I definitely, out of the Tom King books, this is going to make my top 5 for sure, out of all of them.
All right, so I've once again going to combine a couple of series into a single single review here. So I did pick up and read the Saturday Morning Adventures Dungeons and Dragons comics. Now there have been, I believe, 2 volumes of this from IDW, along with a summer special. I can't remember if there's been 2 specials or if there was just the 1 special. But for anybody who doesn't know, back in the 80s, we had a Dungeons and Dragons cartoon where we had these 5 teenagers. Oh, actually, one of them wasn't even the teenagers. That they go into a carnival ride, they get sucked into the world of Dungeons and Dragons, they meet the dungeon master, and they go on these adventures for, I think it made it 3 seasons. They never got home in the series. The series ended before they could ever send the characters safely back home. So IDW has picked up the license for this, and there's been a little bit of a renaissance for these characters because they also, in the most recent Dungeons and Dragons movie, there was they were in this competition, and there was one of the other teams was actually these characters was the other team. So it's kind of like a little Easter egg inside of that. The first of these 2 Saturday Morning Adventures Dungeons and Dragons, I didn't care for it too much because the first one, it was like oh my gosh, I'm the ranger who is the leader of the group, and it's like like they get into the arguments, and this one's like, well, who basically made you boss? Well, they're trying to get home. Well, maybe all the rest of them decide, well, we don't want to go home. Maybe we don't want to go home, or maybe we're never going to get home. Maybe we'll just stay here forever. So it kind of felt like this little pity party for the first series. But because I loved this cartoon so much, I went ahead and picked up the 2nd volume and the one shot, and the story does get better. They, at the end of that first volume, they move away from that. Oh, Hank is the ranger's name. It's like, Hank, we all want to get home, but we'll get home when we get home. So what was cool in the second volume is that if you are familiar with, and man, I've spent a lot of time talking about Dungeons and Dragons in this, as if it were like my entire childhood, but it's only just a very, very small piece of it. But there are these other realms of Waterdeep, and there's a drow elf named Dritz, and those characters and areas get introduced into this Saturday Morning Adventures Dungeons and Dragons comic. So if you're a Dungeons and Dragons fan, for sure, if you were a fan of the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, or if you just want to see, some fantasy stories kind of set in a pseudo Dungeons and Dragons world, these are pretty good. I was down on the first volume after I initially read it, but the second volume definitely got much better with the introduction of expanding the cartoon universe to encompass some areas and other characters. Oh, and the big one was Baldur's Gate, which was a video game.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, so there is Minsk and Boo. He's a barbarian, and he has this little, I think is he a gerbil? Anyway, he gets introduced into this as well. So it's just, it's fun. It becomes fun, and not so much of a, like I said, of a whining party like the first volume started out. So definitely, if you're a fan of the cartoon, you should pick these up. So,
yeah.
You don't have any more?
No, I'm it. That's it.
Okay, all right, okay. Because I could go on if I needed to, but all right. So you want a CLZ Shake then?
Yeah. Let's see here.
All right. So I gotta get my app open here. If you're good, go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
I never can get it to show up on the screen for you to see.
Well, you turned it away too fast.
Well, I started to show you that I was shaking it, and then I realized that the glare never. Anyway, I got Flash Volume 1, number 345. We're only 5 issues away from the end of the original run of the Flash, and to boot, that original run actually does include the Golden Age Flash, because if you recall, the Silver Age Flash picked up on the numbering with issue 105. Anyway, issue 345 came out in May of 1985, and we're right in the midst of what seemed to be forever lasting trial of the Flash, where he was at trial or charged with murdering Iris. Or was it Iris, or was it his girlfriend at the time? It wasn't Iris, I don't think. I forgot. Fiona, I think, was the girlfriend's name. Before she realized Iris was still alive. Before he realized Iris was still alive and living in the future. So the pencils, both the cover and the interior, are by Carmine Infantino. Inks by Klaus Janson. And the script by Cary Bates. Bates wrote this title for years. And, so I don't remember much about it, but I did have a few missing. I had a lot of the original, picked them up off the stands of this last bit of the run, but I finally decided I'm just going to complete the runs. So I did find a bunch of these in a dollar bin somewhere, and this might have been one of them. It looks like it was picked up by me in December of 2019.
And when you say complete the run, I assume that's the run starting at 105?
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. I do. Actually, I don't have any Flash comics. I have a couple of all Flash comics, but that's it.
Okay. Nothing Flash pre-105 then?
No.
Okay.
I have a Green Lantern.
Hey, all right. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to hope that I don't get my usual. So, it's worse than my usual.
What is it?
I was getting ready to say, at least it's not ROM Micronauts or Star Wars.
Oh.
But it's okay. At least I got a story for this one. So this is Green Arrow, Volume 7, issue number 12. Now, Mike, do you know why this issue might be in my collection?
Green Arrow, Volume 7. Can you remind me of the year of Volume 7?
Issue 12, 2024.
Oh, so it's the most recent.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Okay, give you a hint. You gave this to me.
Yeah.
Do you remember why you gave
Oh,
this to
had
me?
volleyball in it.
It had volleyball in it.
Oh,
All right.
perfect. Yes.
So I just flipped through this. I didn't actually read it, but because on the interiors there is a scene where they are playing volleyball in it. I even have a little note here that it's in my storage box volleyball. So yeah, that's why I own this book. It's the let's see, who's it? Josh Williamson. It probably is pretty good, written by Joshua Williamson.
Yeah, the run is pretty
Art
good.
by Sean.
Yeah,
Yeah, art by Sean Izaakse.
yeah.
But I guess Merlin makes an appearance in this. The archer Merlin, not the wizard Merlin, makes an appearance. So they end up on a beach and play some volleyball. So
Yeah, I remember the story now because I did read it, and it's
okay.
because he had the whole Arrow family. That was the only thing I really haven't liked about the title is they've got it feels like 72 different archers now running around, and I'm
Yeah.
like, there's just too many. And
I mean, just think about all the DC books. You got the Batman family, the Superman family,
Yeah.
the Flash family,
Yes.
now the Green Arrow family. There's just
it's just
too much
yeah, and
sometimes.
it's just like what makes a lot of them special is no longer special if so many people have the same power set.
exact same
you know,
thing,
it's yeah, but that's why I'm not keeping those books. I've been buying them, or I was for a while, and that's why I got rid of the first dozen or 12 or dozen or 15 issues, and I don't know where they're at now in the series. But Williams is a good writer, and I still, if I want to read it on the app, I can.
There you go. All right. So, all right, Mike, you know what's coming up for episode 212?
Well, we call it pre-orders. Some people still call it previews. You can call it anything, but don't call me late for dinner. Um, I think we hopefully will know in the next couple of our episodes covering new comics being solicited. We'll know exactly what to call it, or at least know where the diamond part of that situation lands. So yeah, that's what we got coming up in episode 212. Yeah, that's it.
And then, and Mike, if somebody wanted to reach out to you besides podcasts at bergcomics.com, how might they do that?
Well, you've got email. That's Mike at comicshoproadshow.com. You've got the Campus Comics Cast Facebook page. You've got Blue Sky. If you just, I never know the handle on Blue Sky exactly, but if you search for Mike's Comic Shop Roadshow, you'll find me there. So definitely can leave messages or comments in any of those places.
And I'm Scott Reed. You can find me at bergcomics.com, BURG comics.com, where there will be links to my eBay store and social media pages. And we'll be back soon with pre-orders.
And flute. So, hey, let's see here. Hang on 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Okay. That's okay. We'll just edit that part out. I had a contractor here, and I thought he was done, but apparently he wasn't.